One time I got to shout out the teams in the nation's capital for blessing us in LA with not one, not two, but three big-time players in trades on Thursday, because it was a day that started off looking more grim than usual, with reports that it was actually the Padres who were on the verge of closing in on a deal to land Max Scherzer. But then boom, like clockwork, here comes the man they call Andrew Fleeceman, with a level of calculated fearlessness that you can really only hope for out of your executive. And next thing you know, Max Scherzer's a Dodger. Not a Giant, not a Padre, a Dodger. And with the trade, the Dodgers fulfill that sudden desire for starting pitching depth coming from Dustin May's season-ending Tommy John surgery and Trevor Bauer's legal uncertainties. And somehow, some way, Friedman managed to get Trea Turner as the cherry on top in this trade. A guy who's a disciplined hitter who will instantly boast the highest batting average on the team, which is already a juggernaut lineup in and of itself. And then Trea Turner's elite base running and speed turns ordinary base hits into doubles and triples. And, oh, by the way, dude also has 18 home runs. So looking ahead at the future for a second, Turner's also an extremely viable candidate to replace Corey Seager at shortstop if and when other teams throw $200 million offers at him this offseason. But forget about the offseason for a second. What makes Trea Turner such a great fit for this Dodger team right now is he's a versatile defender who can easily hold it down at second base or center field. And just wait until you hear what a fully healthy Dodgers lineup sounds like. I mean, you got Mookie Betts leading off in right field, followed by Trea Turner, who likely turns into a second baseman as soon as Seager comes back to the team at short, hitting third. And then, oh, by the way, Muncy hitting cleanup at first base, followed by the clutch hitting Will Smith, who continues to improve defensively behind the dish. Then it's JT at third base, followed by a guy in Chris Taylor who can play just about anywhere on the field. And that leaves the Dodgers with the luxury of having their 8-hitter be either a left-handed former NL MVP in Cody Bellinger, who, yeah, he's struggling right now, or a right-handed AJ Pollock, who has been absolutely electric during the month of July with a .375 batting average and 7 dingers. And between a lefty in Belly and the righty in Pollock, you can easily establish a solid platoon for that final outfield spot depending on the pitcher that you're facing. And then that's going to leave you with Gavin Lux, Zach McKinstry, and Albert Pujols leading the way from the bench. So for those of you counting at home, I mean, that lineup plus the Dodgers now have 2 3-time Cy Young Award winners between Kershaw and Scherzer to go along with 2 homegrown aces in Walker Buehler and Julio Urias. Yeah, sign me up for all that, man, because I don't care who it is. You never want to be in a one-game win-or-go-home situation like the wild card, not against any team, let alone a hungry division rival like the Padres. Because this move is all about finishing the regular season strong and pulling ahead of the Giants to secure a 9th straight NL West title where the Dodgers can then use that depth on the mound and in the lineup to make a run at defending last year's World Series title. And look, they're absolutely the favorites to do it. So yes, the Dodgers may have parted ways with their top 2 prospects to make this trade happen, but it's the cost of doing business for a team with championship aspirations. And the blow is lessened when you really consider the fact that the Dodgers' domestic and international scouting department is just continuously finding and developing talent. I mean, as an LA fan, how can you not love this aggressive mentality that these front offices in the city are showing? You got Les Snead and the Rams went after it this offseason, getting Stafford. Andrew Friedman and the Dodgers just yesterday making big moves for Scherzer and Trea Turner. And now it's Rob Pelinka and the Lakers doing what it takes to show they're all in on maximizing this championship window. And while AD and LeBron ultimately proved that they could win a ring together as a duo, it was always Pelinka's big idea to get a third star to go along with them. And for 2 years, Rob went fishing. 2 years later, he finally got a hold of his big fish. And I'm happy to say that that big fish is none other than an LA native in Russell Westbrook. I mean, simply put, the guy's a leader. Absolutely relentless since his days at UCLA and all throughout the NBA as well. Russell Westbrook, just a clear-cut upgrade from Dennis Schroeder as a playmaker and a slasher. And I say this as a guy who liked Schroeder last year. But he's instantly going to make the Lakers a lot better in transition with the way he rebounds the ball, pushes the tempo. And the thing about him is he commands such a presence when he attacks the basket that you just know AD's going to get a lot of easy buckets in the paint, both in transition and in half-court sets. So this is a Laker team. You look at them, 18th in points created off assists last year. So adding Russ, that changes that dramatically, you would think. So I'm expecting him to really tear it up, especially in these lineups where LeBron's resting, because it will allow him to be a more ball-dominant force executing pick and roll with AD. And in this instance, it's absolutely a good thing because this takes a lot of pressure off LeBron's shoulder as a playmaker and facilitator. And as much as we just like to brush it off to the side and say he's not human, LeBron just finished his 18th regular season. And with 266 career postseason games under his belt, he's actually played the equivalent of 21 seasons in the league. So as we saw last year with injuries to both AD and LeBron ultimately derailing the Lakers' chances at a title, health is wealth. That's at least what the saying is. So with Russ now in the mix, what you now get is more injury insurance. And God forbid AD or LeBron go down with an injury. But if one of them does, then you know you have a guy in Russ who will keep the team afloat as part of a dynamic duo with whichever one of the two stays healthy. Now, here is what I will say, adding all that. For as excited as I am, one thing I'm not going to do is ignore the weaknesses that Russell Westbrook has and what that means for this Lakers team. Because Russell Westbrook does nothing to help this team's below-average three-point shooting. Kuzma and KCP, they were the team's best three-point shooters last year, and those were the two of the three sacrificial lambs required to bring Russ to LA. And with Montrezl Harrell included in that trade package as well, now you're left with the only tradable asset remaining is Dennis Schroeder through sign and trade. But that can't happen until August 2nd, and with Dennis set to be an unrestricted free agent, he's under no obligation to participate in a sign and trade that helps the Lakers if he doesn't want to. So while it looks a lot less likely now that the Lakers can trade for a shooter like Buddy Hield, there's still been reports that the Kings still have interest and the Wizards would be willing to rework a deal to take on Schroeder, which would send either Kuz or Montrez to Sacramento. And maybe, they'd take on an additional piece in Alfonso McKinney from the Lakers for salary matching purposes to help the Lakers better absorb the nearly $23 million that Buddy Hield is owed in the 2021-2022 NBA season. And with all that said, it's far too early to judge this move of trading for Russ until the end of free agency, because as of now, the Lakers are still only a five-man team with LeBron, AD, Russ, Marc Gasol, and Alfonso McKinney being the only ones under contract. So with 10 spots to fill, they're definitely going to have to address three-point shooting, bench scoring, and depth at the center position. Now, of the guys who can potentially run it back, Alex Caruso is an unrestricted free agent, and THT is a restricted free agent. Now, those two are going to command the most interest from rival teams, but the Lakers can spend around $9 million annually on both those guys and retain them. So, as far as shooters go, I can easily definitely see Wes Matthews and Ben McLemore wanting to run it back with a team, and there could also be some mutual interest in running it back with Markieff Morris. But the biggest factor, to me, the biggest key factor will be convincing vets to tag along on cheap deals. And that's where Russell Westbrook's presence on what's now a team with a trio of stars certainly helps the Lakers in attempts to do so. We could easily see a guy like Carmelo Anthony coming to join a team with his good friends Russ and Bron and provide some much-needed bench scoring. And then there's also J.J. Redick, and L.A. makes sense for him for multiple reasons. First and foremost, he's a free agent who can just absolutely let it fly from downtown. But not to be underlooked is the fact that Redick is also a guy with media aspirations, and being in LA certainly doesn't hurt in that department as well. And while there's definitely going to be questions about floor spacing with Russ, that can also change from within, not even looking externally, as long as AD shows more of a commitment to playing the five, and that actually appears to be the case, according to a report from Broderick Turner of the LA Times, who said that LeBron, AD, and Russ all met about 2 weeks ago to discuss how the three of them would adjust their roles to accommodate each other's playing styles and do whatever is necessary to win a championship. So to me, what I'm looking for is for AD to put in that necessary work this offseason to strengthen his core, stretch, and get ready for what could be a more physically demanding season, playing more minutes at the center position, even though he's going to get a lot of rest this offseason. But my overall take on this whole Russ thing, just get out of here with that 4 teams in 4 years nonsense, please. Chris Paul is a guy who joined his 4th team in 5 years when he was traded to the Suns, and look at him. Phoenix would not be where they were if not for CP3. So, I mean, you want to call me an optimist or a homer if you'd like, go ahead, fine. I don't really care. But when it comes to analyzing how Russell Westbrook meshes with this Laker team, personally, I'd rather look at what he brings to the table than what he doesn't bring to the table. Because after all, he's a future first ballot Hall of Famer, a former MVP, and the all-time leader in triple-doubles after averaging 1 in 4 of his last 5 seasons, including last year. And simply put, the guy just gets after it. And it gets me going, knowing that the purple and gold are going to be getting a guy with that Mamba level of intensity to suit up for them night in and night out. I mean, I dig it, man. It's hard not to.